So Jess, I will call you Jess because I know
can,
you.
'cause
I know
we're
her quite
friends,
well,
so,
actually.
yeah.
Where is that name from?
Italian.
Italian, right? But your accent tells me you're not exactly from Italy.
No, I'm American. I actually don't speak any Italian, so I know.
But you eat the pizza.
Oh, all the pizza.
Yeah, the American type pizza. We can have a debate for 20 minutes about which one is best. I still prefer the Italian version of it. Which part of the US?
Boston.
Boston. Well, I know which brand you're going to talk about then. I'll leave you to it. You have the honor of opening this afternoon and being super loud so that people actually, oh, you see, they already are showing up. Of course they will show up for you. Ladies and gentlemen, Jessica.
Thank you, Paul, for that amazing introduction. I am so thrilled to be here. It's my first time at DigitalK, and actually first time in Bulgaria as well. So huge honor, and I guess it's my job now to wake you guys up after lunch. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the new rules of brand storytelling. So what excites me about storytelling is that humans have actually been telling stories since the beginning of time, and actually for good reason. Stories spark our emotions. They help us to better understand and empathize with one another. And they're actually more memorable, about 22 times more memorable than facts and figures alone. And here's a stat I actually found hugely interesting. Do you know that the neural activity aka the activity in our brain, actually increases about 5 times when we're listening to a story? So that literally means that storytelling lights up your brain, specifically the sensory cortex in your brain that allows you to feel, to hear, to taste, to even smell the story, which is pretty cool, right? So how do you do storytelling in a business context? I've spent the earlier part of this year writing a new book called The Laws of Brand Storytelling, which is coming out in November, and I'm going to share with you my top 4 rules for best-in-class brand storytelling. Let's jump in. The first rule is to let your purpose shine. So here's what's interesting. Being a good storyteller actually comes from knowing who you are. And there's a couple key questions that you as a business need to ask yourself as you're defining who you are and the types of stories that you want to tell. You need to start with, what is your purpose? Why does your brand exist? We are all in business for a reason. What is the reason that you're in business? What does your brand actually stand for? You know, what are the issues that matter to you? What are the values that you govern yourself by? What is the culture that you want to nurture? How do you treat your employees, your suppliers, your partners, your customers? What values do you kind of live off of culturally? And then lastly, how are you perceived by your customers and by your industry? Because a lot of times when we get into the idea of storytelling, we say, this is how I want to be known. This is what I stand for. It's all about me. But here's the thing. If those messages don't actually resonate with your customers or your industry, those stories are not going to do anything for you. So one company that I think does an amazing job of this is General Electric, or GE. And their purpose is around innovation in STEM. So science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And everything GE does kind of layers back to that purpose of innovation in STEM. For example, I just pulled a few kind of posts from their Facebook page. It's actually a great place to go if you want to see kind of their everyday stories. But you can see here, they tell stories about how they're providing power stability for the Channel Tunnel that runs between England and France. They tell stories about the companies that they fund through GE Ventures, and one specifically that's working on artificially intelligent dashboard cams that can help prevent and predict car collisions. So really cool stories, but tactically, if you actually look at how these are structured, they put a good bit of copy up front. They have a blog post that they link to. So if you're a huge geek like me and you love these kind of stories and innovations, you can actually dig a bit deeper. But then, for folks that don't want to leave the Facebook environment, they do between a 1 to 2 minute video of that story. There's an audio experience to go with it, and they actually have very punchy text overlay for those that maybe don't listen with sound, because there's actually a good percentage of people who watch videos on Facebook and social media sites without sound. So again, a really strategic way to tell that story in the best way that the person wants to absorb it, which is a great takeaway. they also actually tell stories not related to their products or services. And this is a novel idea, right? We're in business, we have products and services to sell, but we're actually going to run stories that layer back to our purpose of innovation in STEM. And one is actually a podcast called Life After. They've actually done 2 podcasts, and this is the most recent one. And what the podcast is about is it imagines people like you and I. We've grown up in an era, we have so much of a footprint on digital and social media. What happens when we pass away one day? The podcast goes into, what if we designed chatbots to mimic someone who had passed away? What impact would that have on society? What impact would that have on us emotionally as humans? And it's hugely fascinating, and I think an interesting way you can kind of layer storytelling around your purpose. And then lastly, GE also takes a stance on issues that they believe in. They took a stance on using hashtag balance the equation to say they want to have 20,000 women in STEM careers by 2020. They started by issuing a very traditional white paper showing research that proves at the current trajectory of kind of men and women entering careers in STEM, they actually wouldn't have the pipeline of future talent to actually innovate at the level that they need to continue innovating and grow their business. So a very kind of logical and inspiring kind of message, but then they also followed it up with an amazing consumer-focused storytelling campaign that asked, what if we treated great female scientists like they were celebrities? And the campaign stars this woman, Millie Dresselhaus, and she is the first female faculty member of MIT. She's won pretty much every award in the scientific community, and they follow her around for the day like she's a Kardashian. Like paparazzi are coming after her, little girls are dressing up for her at Halloween, and they also are making Barbie dolls in her likeness. So, you know, the message there is we should celebrate people who are making amazing contributions to society, and we also should encourage women to kind of want to pursue these careers where they can make amazing contributions. So the second lesson I have is to maximize your macro and micro storytelling moments. So companies typically have 2 different types of stories that they tell. They're macro stories and they're micro stories. And the macro stories are what we've been talking about in the first lesson. They're kind of core to your organization's DNA. They highlight your company's story, your founding myth, your why, basically. And then micro stories, on the other hand, are kind of the lifeblood of your storytelling strategy. They're an always-on approach to continue building your macro story. And one story I wanted to share to show you how this kind of happens in a consumer brand context is Dunkin Donuts. So I used to run the Dunkin Donuts social media program for 5 years out of Boston. And Dunkin Donuts' macro story is about keeping busy customers on the go running. They want to celebrate the people who run on Dunkin'. That's their tagline. And how they do this is everything from the products that they design are meant to be consumed on the go. The in-store experience is meant for speed of service. They have all of their customer-facing communications about inspiring people and kind of keeping them running on Dunkin'. So in terms of an example around that, I actually, for the first time in my career, got to do a casting call through social media. So we had an aha moment where we realized we were running kind of amazing storytelling campaigns based on just customer insights, which is common. This is what most businesses do. But the light bulb went on and we said, wait, we are getting amazing stories each and every day through our customer service, through our social media channels. We're not asking for these stories. What if we actually started to do social listening, mine for these stories, and cast the actual customer in a kind of TV, radio, and social and digital campaign? So I actually got to do that. And imagine if you love a brand so much and you're on the receiving end of a brand that says, hey, we want to talk to you about a project that we're doing. And it ends up that you get to star in a TV commercial. It's pretty cool, from a real, genuine kind of tweet that you made. And then an example about the always-on micro stories is, a brand like Dunkin Donuts, they have tons of products and service products that come out every year. So how do you talk about your products in an interesting way? Well, what if you went behind the scenes in the super secret Dunkin Donuts test kitchen and interviewed the manager of Donut Excellence about the new donut flavor that's just come out? What was the inspiration? Why does this flavor pairing work? What are kind of some of the ingredients that we're using when we make this product? It becomes a lot more compelling than just saying, hey, we've got a new donut that's this flavor. So another example, too, is timely kind of events and contests. So this goes into a bit of your real-time marketing, but also timely occasions throughout the year. There's a lot you can actually plan for in advance. And one we did was a Halloween coffee cup decorating competition. So, a simple social media contest, but we said, what should Dunkin' Donuts be for Halloween? Dress your coffee cup up and tell us kind of what character we should be and why. So a simple idea, but it allows us to then kind of interject our brand into the conversation around Halloween. We have Halloween menu items, kind of Halloween decorations in store, and it becomes another way the brand can tell the story about how they love that holiday. And a tip for you is there is a traditional, a weird, or a wonderful holiday for just about every day of the year. So in March, there actually was Star Wars Day on May the 4th. So May the 4th be with you. But in September, there's Talk Like a Pirate Day. There's a World Emoji Day. There's even a National Dog Day. So if you can imagine it, there is a weird or wonderful holiday around it, and it's a great thing, depending on kind of what matters to your business, to craft some stories around. And then lastly, going local. So an important element of the Dunkin' Donuts business is they're almost 100% franchised. And what that means is individual store owners actually own the different restaurants you go into. So whether that's in Maine or Los Angeles, California, Berlin, Germany, or Seoul, South Korea, the menus change and kind of the in-store experience changes. So it's really important for that brand to show that they are proud to be part of the communities and the countries that they serve. So whether that's kind of sponsoring a charity walk or even kind of just showing imagery of the product kind of in the local setting, telling that story is hugely important and strategic. And then my third rule is around embracing different mediums and channels to bring your stories to life. We spend so much time thinking about our stories, but do we think about what it actually takes to bring them to life? So did you know that 90% of information transmitted to the brain is visual? Or that visuals are actually processed 60,000 times faster than text alone? You have to ask yourself, what is the right visual to go with my story? We have more visual mediums than ever before, from a photo to a video. What about a humorous meme to put an exclamation point on a story? What about an infographic to tell a data story? Or even a SlideShare presentation. You could take a presentation much like this, put this on SlideShare, which is actually owned by LinkedIn, and have a visual ebook for literally kind of no to minimal cost and a very little kind of effort on your end. So there's a huge amount of opportunities in the visual realm. But here's the thing, where you tell your story actually shapes how you tell it. So you also have to factor the channels that you want to put your stories out on. And as I've shown a bit in this presentation, now you can be thinking about podcasts, what about your mobile app, emails, even kind of what's physically printed on the products that you offer. All of those can offer interesting storytelling opportunities. So I'm going to jump into a few examples. So one that I thought was really clever is from the Calgary Zoo in Canada. And they issue an annual report every year. And they had the goal of getting more awareness around the annual report and the stories that it contains about the great work that the zoo is doing in the community. So they decided that why don't we create an Instagram account for our annual report? And it seems like a small kind of tactical thing, like a clever idea, but they actually got international news headlines because it was the first of its kind. They really reimagined kind of the storytelling opportunities through Instagram because each image corresponds to a different page of the annual report, and they put the text in the copy. So they generated kind of millions upon millions of views for their annual report on Instagram. And for a business, an organization that really thrives on kind of corporate sponsors and donors, it became a strategic way to raise more kind of awareness and funds for the work that the zoo is doing. Another example is we think about direct mail, and we often hear direct mail is dead. But in kind of this era of infobesity where we're constantly being kind of faced with so many messages across social and digital and email, I mean, how many emails? I don't know if anyone here got tons of GDPR emails. I think my inbox have never been more intense place to be than now. So in that era where you're just so kind of constantly clogged with messages, what if something cool lands on your desk or on your kitchen table at home? So a company called Grasshopper, they're actually rebranding their name to Grasshopper. They're an entrepreneur's phone system based in the United States. They actually sent out, as part of their kind of PR announcement, they did kind of industry influencers in the tech industry, they sent them chocolate-covered grasshoppers in the mail. And why this is strategic is because they brand themselves as the entrepreneur's phone system. They serve small and medium businesses, and they're kind of a small business themselves. They know what it's like to be an entrepreneur, to build a business, to take risks, and they said, you know, we're rebranding to Grasshopper, and we encourage you to take a risk with us and try kind of this chocolate-covered grasshopper and see what you think. So I think quite clever and really got their message across. And if you're interested in that campaign, they also issued quite possibly the best video I've ever seen called Entrepreneurs Can Change the World, and it's an amazing storytelling video that I would have shown if I had a bit more time. And then lastly, we spend so much time about the content that we push out, but what about things that are already happening online? So there was a tweet to Smart Car that said, saw a bird, had crapped on a smart car, totaled it. Now, Smart Car could have ignored this. They're often kind of the butt of people's jokes and kind of poking fun at the small size of a smart car, but they didn't. They said, couldn't have been one bird. Sounds more like 4.5 million. Seriously, we did the math, and wait for it. They actually created an infographic with the weight of bird crap it would take to total a smart car. So if, for those that can't see it, it's 4.5 million pigeon craps, 360,000 turkey craps, and 45,000 emu craps. So the gentleman, Clayton, he runs an advertising industry blog. He responded back, outsmarted by Smart Car, best response ever. And here's what's interesting. So the brand at the time had been seeing a lot of these conversations, and they were trying to decide if they should really invest on taking on more of these types of kind of being the kind of small stature kind of butt of the jokes. And this really reinforced to them, kind of based on the response and support they got from this kind of response, that they should take on more of that and tell that story more boldly. And then kind of my last rule is that great storytellers put the customer experience first. So imagine this, you are hiking the Pacific Northwest Trail in Oregon. It's a beautiful experience, but you're in agony because you bought your hiking boots a size too small and you have the most painful blisters. What do? Well, the customer in hand bought these boots from an outdoor and apparel brand called REI. She called them in a low point on the trail, gave them a piece of her mind and was like, what can you do for me? And they were like, well, we'll overnight you boots to the next rest area. Can you make it there? And she was like, oh my God, yes, I can make it there. And they sent them to her mid-hike. You know, they actually have a customer service policy where if something like that happens, they will send you a new pair of boots while you're in the middle of nowhere on your hike. How amazing is that? But that's a business policy, and that's true to the purpose that they live. But little did they know, that customer, who wasn't really a big person at the time, went on to write a best-selling memoir called Wild. And that memoir was actually turned into a Hollywood film starring Reese Witherspoon, who's the woman on screen. And REI actually got a free placement in that movie because of that real-life story that happened. Their whole business and purpose is around opting outside, getting people to enjoy the outdoors, and they really invest in inspirational storytelling and very practical storytelling and educational content on what's the right tent or sleeping bag or hiking boots to help you kind of have that good outdoor experience. But in the age of the empowered customer, your brand is not what you say it is. It's what they say it is. And by prioritizing the customer experience and having amazing customer experience policies in place, like the one that REI has, not only will your story be more meaningful, but more stories will emerge. So wrapping up, because I know I'm about out of time here, some key takeaways for you. So telling great stories comes from a strong sense of who you are and your purpose. There's an art and science to uncovering great stories. Go beyond the obvious. Go beyond just your products and services. Look across your company, your customers, your values, key issues, and all of those will help you shape amazing, powerful stories. you want to make sure to test, to learn, to optimize, and repeat. Everything from the storylines that you tell, to the visuals that you use, and the channel mix that you kind of activate on. And then lastly, put customers at the heart of everything you do for long-term success. And if you leave my talk with one takeaway, it's that the best marketing does not feel like marketing. And this is why embracing storytelling is a powerful strategy for standing out and connecting with your customers. So thank you so much.